Minister of Financial Services, who I now catch. Honourable Minister for Financial Services.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I was asked to table the joint position paper between the Cayman Bar Association and the Cayman Islands Law Society. But before doing that, Madam Speaker, in the interest of full disclosure, I do need to make one clarification in respect of the answer that was given originally. Madam Speaker, the drafting instructions were approved through the caucus process and not specifically at that time by way of a cabinet paper. So, Madam Speaker, what I am going to table is the position paper that I indicated, which formed the basis of the drafting instructions, as well as a subsequent and annotated version of that, which reflected the two things. One was the policy positions, which was taken in respect of the three items that were added as principles to be reflected in the draft, and where the provisions of the joint position paper were reflected in the draft legislation at that time. So with your permission, Madam Speaker, I will table these at this point.
So ordered, Honourable Minister. I recognize the Honourable Member from Northside.
Through you, Madam Speaker, to the Honourable Minister. The Minister says that the draft was commissioned jointly by the Cayman Islands Law Society and the Cayman Bar Association. Does the Minister have any information on how that jointly was split? Was it 50-50, 90-10, 100%, zero?
Honourable Member from Northside, would you, can I crave your indulgence for you to repeat that? I was conversing with the Sergeant and I didn't hear all of your question.
The question I'm asking the member, Madam Speaker, is his answer says it was commissioned jointly. I'm just wondering if he has any information of how that jointly was shared. Was it 50-50 on the cost? Or was it 60-40 or 90-10 or 100-0?
Honourable Minister for Financial Services.
Madam Speaker, thank you. I believe the member is asking about what may have been any costs associated with it. I don't know. I don't have that information at all, Madam Speaker. As I indicated, there wasn't a cost to government. The position paper was a joint position paper between the two associations, and I have no other information specifically in respect of how they allocated any kind of cost, if any.
If the Honourable Member from Northside.
Through you, Madam Speaker, so just so the Minister would clarify that when you refer to commission jointly, you're talking about the drafting instructions which you just tabled and not any costs related to hiring Mr. Clive Borrowman.
Honourable Minister for Financial Services.
Madam Speaker, that is correct. As I said, this was a joint position paper. I have no information to add on the burden of any costs. Thank you.
If there are no further member from Easton, followed by the fifth member from Georgetown.
Madam Speaker, for further discussion, I would respectfully ask if we could get copies of those draft instructions circulated.
That's being done as you speak, member.
And thank you, Madam Speaker. But further, my question is that the minister just said that he made a correction to the substantive answer, and instead of the draft instructions approved by cabinet, I understood him to say that they were approved by caucus. Am I correct in that?
Honourable Minister for Financial Services.
Madam Speaker, that is correct. The government has operated on a caucus basis in terms of considering recommendations, and this was in respect of policy positions, and this was a matter that was considered by caucus, and the authorization was given to prepare the draft in accordance with the joint position paper as modified by caucus. Thank you.
Honourable Member from Easton.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, can the minister say if it is not the practice, the requirement for instructions to be given by ministers through cabinet, or if there's a change in those processes?
Member from Easton, can you make it relevant to this question rather than a general policy, since it's a supplementary?
Well, Madam Speaker, after he changed it from cabinet to caucus, then I am asking.
I'm just saying, you can
I guess it.
just make what you're asking specific to this rather than asking a general policy, because he is not the Premier, he's the Minister for Financial Services.
You answer what? You wouldn't answer the
Member from
substantive
Easton.
question. Madam Speaker, can I put it this way then? Why, if the minister can tell us, why in this instance that the process may have changed, instead of instructions being through the minister, through cabinet?
Honourable Minister for Financial Services.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the reality is the process is not fixed in how these things are developed, how drafts are developed. What is fixed is that it has to ultimately be approved by cabinet, signed off by cabinet before it is tabled here. Madam Speaker, there are other instances where, for example, in relation to the Maritime Authority, and that may be true of some other authorities as well, where they have someone prepare a draft legislation, and it then comes through to be reviewed by the ministry, and ultimately it goes through a caucus and then cabinet final process before it is tabled. So there's nothing absolutely fixed with the process if it involves drafting being done by outside consultants. Where the drafting is typically done by the government legal department, Madam Speaker, then the government legal department usually ask for a cabinet approval of specific drafting instructions before they proceed. But it is not uncommon, in fact it is relatively common, to have legislation prepared outside that process and subsequently considered and approved ultimately in cabinet before presentation or tabling, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, in this case, we did have this bill reviewed by the government legal drafting department to ensure consistency, as I noted in my initial answer, and to ensure that there was a reflection of, that it was consistent with Cayman legal principles, and it was considered also in the context of the omnibus authorization given in respect of the Financial Action Task Force amendments that were required. So ultimately, Madam Speaker, it was reviewed and signed off by the legal department within those parameters and published, approved and published in this Honourable House. Thank you.
Member from Easton, followed by the fifth member from Georgetown, then the Leader of Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this is my last question. I'm going to leave it alone. Madam Speaker, every member who has spoken in this House on this legal practitioners bill thus far has said that, has expressed concerns about discrimination against Caymanians by law firms. Does perceived or real, Madam Speaker, those were the two words used to describe that discrimination. Madam Speaker, I wonder if the minister can tell us whether or not he and or the government considers allowing those two organizations from all those large firms paying for making instructions and paying for the development of this legal practitioners bill to be delivered here, which we are currently doing. If the minister can tell us if he or the government, he and or the government does not consider that a conflict.
Honourable Minister, you can answer as it relates to yourself. Unless you consulted with the government, you do not have to answer the latter.
Madam Speaker, the draft position paper, or the joint position paper, and the draft bill contains a number of provisions which specifically sought ways to address the concerns around discrimination. So, Madam Speaker, the Caymanian Bar Association, being a body representing the interests of Caymanian lawyers, was the organization that agreed this position on behalf of from their perspective and on behalf of their members, Madam Speaker. Ultimately, their membership supported the bill and the provisions. So, Madam Speaker, it was on that basis that the view was taken that there was a fair representation of the concerns in relation to Caymanian interests and anything relating to discrimination. Madam Speaker, unless the member thinks that all of the good Caymanians that are involved in the council of the Caymanian Bar Association were not acting in the interests of Caymanian lawyers, that's up to him. But I took the position in good faith that they were representing the views and the interests of Caymanian lawyers in agreeing this joint position paper. Thank you.
Fifth elected member from Georgetown.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, through you to the Honourable Minister, what was the exact mandate of the two societies given the drafting instructions? Was it their executives, or was it after they had consulted with their membership to move forward with the drafting of this bill?
Honourable Minister for Financial Services.
Madam Speaker, I don't know that I can be 100% accurate in responding on that, but my understanding at the time was that what was being agreed was the councils, the bodies, the governing bodies of the associations, who were reflecting the interests of both associations in agreeing these positions, Madam Speaker. I'm no longer a member of either one, as far as I know. Certainly haven't paid any fees for many years, so I wasn't involved with that, Madam Speaker, and I can't really speak beyond that. Thank you.
Fifth elected member from Georgetown.
Madam Speaker, I raised the question because we've gone through a big PR campaign showing all the statistics after the fact about how many people, or the percentage of the people who voted at the CBA level accepting this bill. And I was just seeing if that carried through in the drafting instructions. But, Madam Speaker, I'll go on to a second question. One of the cornerstones of Cayman's success is the rule of law, and the apex of which is the Attorney General as guardian of the public interest. It's extremely concerning that such a pillar i.e. the regulation of the legal profession has been privatized to interests with inherent conflicts, as evidenced by a number of the letters tabled before this House, including the CBA's memos to immigration. And I want to ask the Honorable Minister, in the vein of full disclosure, accountability, and transparency, whether that is not now seen in hindsight as perhaps not the best way forward, i.e. the Law Society and the Cayman Bar Association being the instructors of the drafting of this bill.
Honourable Minister for Financial Services.
Madam Speaker, the member may want to or wish to question the integrity and the motives and the intentions of those members of these two associations and their governing bodies as to why they took the positions they did and agreed this joint position paper. But Madam Speaker, I think as the minister and certainly as the government, we shouldn't be questioning their motives or their intentions when they come to us and they say, this is the agreed position that we want to move forward on this basis with and seek finalization and approval of this draft legislation amongst our membership. So the member referred to a process which the Bar Association went through to get approval of the membership to the bill. I see nothing wrong with that approach, Madam Speaker. That the membership was free to read the bill and say whether or not they were in favor of it or not. I'm not here to question their motives or their integrity. If the member wishes to do that, that's entirely up to him. But I think that they coming to us and representing to us as they did, that this is their collective position on these long outstanding issues, I think we have a right to take it at face value. Thank you.
Fifth elected member from Georgetown, allow two more.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Speaker. Just a clarification of the question before, because I don't think it was answered, is I was asking about the genesis, not what happened afterwards. You would not check and verify that it was the full membership that had been consulted and they wanted this bill, or it was just the two association executives that approached government?
Honourable Minister for Financial Services.
Madam Speaker, the associations, just like any corporate body, work through their councils or whatever the governing body is called. So if they come to us and they say, here's a joint position, these are the principles that have concerned the members of these associations for some time, and we have finally reached an agreement on these points and these principles, and we would like to be able to move forward with a draft piece of legislation which reflects these joint principles. Again, Madam Speaker, I see nothing wrong with these two bodies, which are the bodies that make the decisions in respect of executive decisions and administrative matters for the associations, moving forward on that basis. It was certainly never the intention that they would not seek approval for whether it was the entire membership, whatever. We needed to be satisfied, and as I have said previously, we were provided subsequently with satisfactory evidence that the membership of these associations approved this bill. So this is the executive bodies representing the position of the associations. We're entitled to take their representations at face value, and then there's a subsequent approval of the product of those associations, councils, being put to the membership and approved. So, Madam Speaker, I see nothing wrong with this, and I appreciate where the members are trying to go with these types of questions, but I don't think there's anything in it.
Fifth elected member from Georgetown.
Madam Speaker, I'm trying to get to the public interest inquiry as in cabinet not trusting but not verifying. But Madam Speaker, through you to the Honorable Minister, again, we're talking about full disclosure in his own words here when he started back this afternoon. Can we requisition the drafter's contract and have it delivered to the House, please?
Honourable Minister for Financial Services.
Madam Speaker, the full disclosure was disclosure that there was the need for a clarification on what body gave authorization to move forward initially. I made that disclosure. I am not in a position to obtain, or I can solicit, I could ask, but I'm not in a position to obtain any sort of contract if there was something to that effect, Madam Speaker.
Honourable fifth elected member from Georgetown.
Madam Speaker, I'd like to move a motion to request the contract.
Do you have a seconder?
Oh, I'll second it. I beg to second it, Madam Speaker.
Do you wish to speak further to the motion, fifth elected member, as to reasoning?
Yes, Madam Speaker. Thank you. Madam Speaker, again, we talk about accountability and transparency. We talk about motive because, Madam Speaker, just this week, we've got word that a member of the Cayman Bar Council and Association resigned abruptly. I'm not making inferences into why that was, but I think what we are finding, especially due to the number of documents that were tabled last week in this House by the opposition, including memos from that very same executive. There are issues that we would have expected to have been raised in the drafting instructions based on some of those long-standing issues. There are things that we would have expected to have been covered, and while we sit here and say, well, they were done in the best interest of Caymanian lawyers and Caymanian law firms, we don't have any proof of what that is, Madam Speaker, because we're still waiting for those joint letters from the CBA and the CILS. Madam Speaker, if we are asking this House in good faith to come to the table to discuss some 75 amendments by the government, including, I just went through this, Madam Speaker, including 135 from the opposition, we need to know what it is both associations giving the mandate we're looking to do. Because, Madam Speaker, if all of a sudden, after 2 years of drafting this law, drafted in private until 21 days before the date in October that it was brought to this honorable House, suddenly needs that many amendments from the government side who brought the bill, then it begs the question whether or not that bill that was circulated, that was signed off by 75% of the people who actually turned up to vote, which wasn't 75% of the membership of the CBA, I want to note, if that bill now accords with their original mandate. And we can't do that unless we see what that mandate is. What was the drafter's contract? How did it compare to the joint position paper? What has now changed so dramatically that we've had to have 75 amendments by the government to its own bill, plus 135 amendments by the opposition finding serious concerns with the bill? And in light of the serious allegations of Caymanian lawyers this past week that have gone on record, which is unprecedented, Madam Speaker, because Caymanians that go on record know the ramifications. So again, in the public interest, given these serious allegations, not perceived like we heard a lot yesterday, real, actual experiences of Caymanian lawyers, we need, as a full House, to be fully aware of what the mandate was, what it is now, and what we're being asked to do on behalf of these two bodies and the Caymanian lawyers. So, Madam Speaker, that's why I moved this motion. It's time for full disclosure, full accountability, and full transparency, because I do not feel at this stage that the representations made to me as a parliamentarian in this House are representations that I can go on without seeing some proof. Trust but verify. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Does any other member wish to speak? I recognize the Honorable Premier.
Madam Speaker, I hope this honorable House and everyone listening understand full well what is continuing to transpire here. Madam Speaker, this is just further efforts by the 5th elected member from Georgetown, who has said publicly he will ensure that we pass no bill in relation to this matter. He and his colleagues on the other side,
Madam Speaker,
to delay this
Fifth elected
process.
member from Georgetown, do you have a point of order?
point of order. Madam Speaker,
Please state the point of order.
please ask the Honorable Premier to put whatever evidence he has that I've said that forward. Because what I've said Madam Speaker, consistently is that I will pass this bill when it's balanced and Caymanians' interests are in there. I've never said I'm going to see that this bill never gets passed in this House. In fact, if I put, yes, he's actually very misleading because I've made multiple posts all over social media as soon as this past weekend, right? Where what I've said is what we need to do as a House is call a commission of inquiry, pass the FATF, CFATF positions, put in place a council made up of 100% Caymanians, which I was glad the Minister of Finance echoed yesterday. But I have never said what that was, so I categorically refute it, Madam Speaker.
Honourable Premier, the Honourable Member from Georgetown is saying that he has not made that statement. Do you have any proof of it, or would you wish to move on?
Madam Speaker, I'm not going to go down that road because that's where he wants me to go so that we can delay the process further. In due course, I can't go get a copy of the Hansards or anything at this moment, so I will withdraw that for the time being. But, Madam Speaker, there is no doubt in anybody's mind what the objective of this exercise is. Madam Speaker, for the life of me, I cannot understand how that member and the others on the other side who have taken his position somehow believe that all of the concerns that have been expressed by the many Caymanians who have written, some who have put their names to their letters, others who have come to us principally about the discrimination factor, somehow believe that having no bill passed by this House, which is what the course that we're on now is going to result in.
Madam Speaker, point of order.
Madam Speaker, I never said a word while that member was speaking. Let him sit down until he winds up his
order. Order. Fifth elected member, do you have a point of order?
Madam Speaker, point of order.
Please state your point of order.
I have never in this House or outside of this House said anything about stopping this bill. The member is misleading this House and the public. I have said repeatedly that we need to stop, look at the provisions that we need to pass, and take our time in a full committee of the whole House and look at all the amendments. There are 75 plus amendments by the government. There are 135 amendments by the opposition. We need to look at them. That's all I've said. I've never said that I want to stop this bill.
Honourable Premier, the member again is stating that he hasn't said it. I know you said what you said with a condition precedent. If you could please continue to debate without that section until you're able to retrieve your evidence, sir.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I just don't know for the life of me how they believe that going down the road they have with one obstacle after another in the way of this bill proceeding to a vote is going to somehow improve the position of Caymanians at the bar or who wish to be called to the bar. All of the complaints about discrimination, Madam Speaker, which I believe by and large, and when I come to my substantive debate, I will talk about that at length. But Madam Speaker, how do we believe that maintaining the status quo is somehow better than arriving at a bill which goes some way, if not the full length that some members might believe, to addressing these issues? Every single complaint about discrimination, every example of it that has occurred in the course of the last 40 years have occurred because of the status quo or under the status quo, not because of the bill we are proposing. That bill has no legal effect. So I haven't looked to see how many amendments are being proposed by the minister, but I understand that it's not the number the fifth elected member has said, but I can't argue about it because I haven't looked. But I will say this. The amendments proposed on this side, which are being complained about, it seems, are efforts by this administration to address the issues that have been raised by the fifth elected member and others, because we are trying with everything we have to get a bill which does do what all of us want it to do: regulate the profession, support and promote the legal practice of law in these islands, and ensure the training, employment, education, and advancement of Caymanians at the bar. That's what we are seeking to do. If we were being completely unresponsive to the concerns that were raised and say, we're going to insist on the bill in its current form regardless, there would be some cause for complaint. But instead of embracing the government's willingness, including, and let me deal with this right now, Madam Speaker, including our efforts to have members on the other side sit down in the committee room in camera and talk about these matters, all of those are fobbed off. Why? In my view, because the last thing they're interested in is a bill which the whole House can support. They want absolute war. That's my opinion. There's no point about it. That's my view.
That is a point of order, Madam Speaker.
Fourth elected
imputing
member from Bodtown, do you have a point of order?
He's suggesting that our motives are to try to derail this bill or try to hurt the country, is what he's basically saying. Madam Speaker, we want to get this right, and that is what we have been arguing from day one, which is why we made the effort to go to every district in this country to talk about this bill. I am not minded to just simply accept something that was written by the perpetrators of the discrimination against my people and simply accept that as something that I should sit down and vote on without having a say. Madam Speaker, our people are depending on us to get this right. I agree with the government on that, but we need to take the time and effort to have both sides equal a balance. We're simply asking for a copy of a contract.
The point of order, as I understand it, Honorable House, from the member was under 35.4, where no member shall impute improper motives to another member. The member was trying to clear his particular position.
Madam Speaker, unless we get to a point in this House where a member cannot express his opinion, then, Madam Speaker, what I say stands, which is, in my opinion, all of the actions that they have taken and are taking again this evening appear to be aimed at derailing this process. We all know we're against time constraints. The House is going to be dissolved on the 28th of March. Madam Speaker, let me just say this, and then I'm going to sit down, because it should be clear to everybody who's paying attention what's going on. Madam Speaker, this bill was published more than 6 months ago. If the government had been intent on driving through the bill in a particular form, we would have done so then. Does anyone in this House seriously believe that Alden McLaughlin, after 16 plus years in this House, does not understand the political risks involved in proceeding with a controversial bill like this at this point, with the elections 2 months away? The reason, not just me, because I asked every single member of my team, gentlemen and lady, do we wish to withdraw this bill? Because of all of those things? Because we know that the opposition is having a field day. And we know, no matter how much they swear up and down, that they see the political currency in what they're doing. But Madam Speaker, to a man and woman, we all agreed that this bill is absolutely critical. Not this bill, a bill is critical to the financial services industry, to the thousands of jobs of Caymanians who work in that industry, to Cayman's reputation internationally in terms of the looming FATF examination or assessment of Cayman and the industry, that it is critical to the many Caymanians whose concerns have been put forward over and over again by members on the other side. I say to all of them and to everybody listening, if we follow this process to its end, going down the course that is being set by some members of the opposition, we are going to dissolve this House in 2 weeks' time, exactly 2 weeks from today, with no bill, with the Caymanians who have been and are being discriminated against in absolutely no better position than they are now. And Madam Speaker, they will call for evidence of this. But I've had 2 members on that side say to me, leave it till the next administration. One of them was not the 5th elected member for Georgetown. I said one of them was not. Was not. Because, Madam Speaker, Alden McLaughlin is many things, but a liar he is not. I make mistakes like everybody else, but a liar I am not. So, Madam Speaker, I understand. They can say whatever they want, but I understand what their objective is. And if we believe that we are serving the interest of our people, the same people we get up and read their letters with tears rolling down our face, if we believe we are serving their interest by leaving the status quo, then you need to think again. Madam Speaker, over the weekend, I spoke to 3 Caymanians who said to me, Alden, this bill is going to kill Caymanian lawyers. I said, my friend, in 3 different separate instances, why do you think that? Because Winston and Arden say that if this bill go through, Caymanians not going to get jobs as lawyers no more. These people, these are not lawyers I'm talking to, these are average people. These people, Madam Speaker, do not understand and cannot be expected to understand the technical aspects of the bill. But what they have gotten, what they have gotten is an impression that somehow this bill is going to make the lot of Caymanian lawyers worse. So I said to them, in each instance, 3 separate instances, I said, tell me something. Do you realize that this bill is not the law? It is not in effect now. And all of the instances of discrimination and bad treatment and lack of opportunity that are complained of are occurring under the status quo where there is no such bill. And in all 3 instances, they said, I didn't realize that. Listening to them, I thought this bill we're going to make these things worse. So, Madam Speaker, I say again, I extend this invitation again for the 3rd time. It was initially suggested by the leader of the opposition. I took him up on it. It was on Friday suggested by the member from East End. I took him up on it. I extend an invitation again. If members on the other side are serious about obtaining for the people of the Cayman Islands and the lawyers in particular a good law to regulate the legal profession which supports and promotes its growth and which gives Caymanians greater opportunity for training, employment, education, and upward advancement. Let's sit down in the committee and try to work through these, however many amendments there are. Because, Madam Speaker, remember I said this, the course we are on now is going to result in no law. And all of the issues, and all of the concerns about discrimination and lack of opportunity and the way firms treat Caymanian lawyers and article clerks, all of those are going to continue under the status quo. If that is something the opposition wants to wear, fine. But it is not something that I want to be part of my legacy and the legacy of the government I have the honor and privilege to lead. And so, Madam Speaker, I beseech members again to back away from this hostility and this anger and this obsession, and let's work together and try to do what is in the best interest of Caymanians. And I'm going to say this, Madam Speaker, all of those over there with their bleeding hearts, let me say this. There is no member in this House who has a greater personal stake in us having a good bill than I do. I graduated from the Cayman Islands Law School in 1988, started my articles in 1983. I was in my firm until 2005 when I became a minister. They're working hard, lots of people working hard to see me out of here. That's the life of a politician. I've done 4 terms. I've given it my best. Whatever the outcome is of the next elections. But I have no other training. I can farm, and I got a nice little farm, but I don't believe I'm going to be able to survive on that. I expect in due course, whether it's in 2 months or 4 years and 2 months, because I certainly wouldn't serve beyond then, to have to take up, to resume the practice of law in one way or the other. You think I don't want a good piece of legislation to operate within? My wife is a lawyer who was almost 2 years she couldn't get articles in Cayman. You think I don't want a situation which enhances the opportunity of Caymanians to get articles? I have a son who is 3 months away from qualifying, God willing, completing his articles at Maples, since they say you got to declare interest. I'm waiting to hear them declare some of the interest, but that's for my real debate. Madam Speaker, there are 4 of us in my immediate family, and 2 of us are lawyers, and 1, God willing, will shortly be. You think I don't care about the outcome of this? Madam Speaker, I have been around politics a long time. This is my 7th campaign and my 5th as an elected member, as a candidate. I have never, Madam Speaker, witnessed the level of viciousness that I've seen going on over this bill against a sitting member of this House. Madam Speaker, let me tell you one thing about the Minister for Financial Services, the much maligned Minister of Financial Services. When all of them over there and those that are advising them, lawyers I'm talking about, have begun to do 1/10 for Caymanian youngsters in the law that the Minister for Financial Services, that I know personally he has done, then they have some ground to talk about he don't care about Caymanians. When they have sent as many on scholarships and paid for as many out of their own pocket, have promoted their interest and worked to ensure they had opportunity, then it might lie in their mouth to question the motives and integrity of a man like Wayne Panton, the Minister for Financial Services. Madam Speaker, it cuts me to my core to see people and hear people like the 5th elected member for Georgetown who has been given an opportunity by that minister. Acknowledge he's been given an opportunity.
Madam Speaker, point of
Honorable fifth
point-
member from Georgetown, what's your point of order?
improper motive again, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker,
What motive?
well, you're trying to say that basically I'm only here, or I was only a lawyer by
I never said
the
any
grace
such
of the Minister of Financial Services.
Any such thing?
In fact,
You all
when
tighten up.
walkers
Come
came
I got 2 more hours after this.
and offered me a job, I already had an offer at Maples that I turned down at the same time. So don't start leaning and saying, oh, I only got opportunities that I earned my way into whatever I've gotten. I've not gotten any hand-ups in this fraternity.
Honorable member from Georgetown, the chair does not consider that to be a point of order, but more a point of elucidation.
Thank you, Madam
Honorable
Speaker.
Premier.
Madam Speaker, I was not suggesting that the member didn't earn his own keep or that he's not an able lawyer. That's not my point. I'm saying that I could not say those sorts of things against somebody who gave me an opportunity. Madam Speaker, let me say this. I finished my A-levels in 1981, bound and determined never to go back to school again. Never to go back to school again. Because, Madam Speaker, the opportunities which availed themselves in Cayman at the time were such that I felt I could get wherever I wanted to go without tertiary education. So I wound up working for government, and in short order, I was deputy clerk of the court at age 21. They were crazy, but nonetheless, that's where I was. The people who gave me the drive, the incentive that encouraged me to go into the law, I sat down last night as I thought about what I would say today and said, you know, every single one of them was a foreigner. Every single one. Madam Speaker, we all have different experiences, and I'm not going to take up too much time right now talking about mine and the battles. But I am saying, Madam Speaker, that if we truly want to improve the lot of Caymanian lawyers, if we truly care about the financial services industry of this country, it is our responsibility collectively to get a good piece of legislation to govern the practice of law. Not to go down the road that we've been going for these last, God knows how many months, and particularly the last couple of weeks, in finding every possible basis, it seems, to keep from arriving at a law. Because there's always this motion, there's that private member's motion, there's 100 and Lord knows how many amendments to the bill. Let's, Madam Speaker, try to work together and get Cayman what we really need, what the country deserves, a good piece of legislation to govern the legal profession. I'll save the rest for my substantive debate.
Does another member wish to speak to the motion to the request of the contract? Honorable member from Easton.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, there seems to be some concerns when we want evidence that will assist us in getting the job that our people sent us here to do. It appears like we become extremely concerned about that, and I don't know why we seem to be so fearful of that. Madam Speaker, if things were produced prior to being asked for, they wouldn't have to be asked for. If things were done in what is considered the conventional manner, they wouldn't have to be asked for. Madam Speaker, I bring to my colleagues and this Honorable House attention certain aspects of summoning witnesses to produce documentation. Section 76 of the Constitution says the Speaker or other person presiding may, when in his or her opinion the business before the Legislative Assembly makes it desirable, summon any person to a meeting of the Assembly, even though that person is not a member of the Assembly. Madam Speaker, I read that first, in order that we all understand that we, as representatives of the people, are protected by laws and empowered by laws to summon individuals to assist us with our responsibilities.
Remember you said 76 or 76?
76, section 76. Summoning of persons to assist the Legislative Assembly, Madam Speaker.
Thank you.
Madam Speaker, I now turn your attention and my honorable colleagues' attention to the Legislative Assembly Immunities, Powers and Privileges Law 1999 revision, wherein Section 5 provides the Assembly or any standing committee may, subject to Section 9 and 12, order any person to attend before such assembly or committee and give evidence or produce any paper, book, record, or document in his possession or control. Madam Speaker, I turn to Section 9.1. If a person summoned to attend, give evidence, or produce paper, book, record, or document before the assembly or a committee is entitled, in respect of such evidence, the disclosure of any communication or the production of any such paper, book, record, or document to the same right or privilege as before the Grand Court. Section 12 says, further provides, where at any time any question arises in the assembly or in committee in regard to A, the right or power of the assembly or a committee to hear, admit, or receive oral evidence, B, the right or power of the assembly or the committee to peruse or examine any paper, book, record, or document, or to summon, direct, or call upon any person to produce any paper, book, record, or document before the assembly or committee, or C, the right or privilege of any person, including a member of the assembly or committee, to refuse to produce any paper, book, record, or document, or to lay any paper, book, record, or document before the assembly or committee, that question shall, subject to this law, and except insofar as express provisions made herein for the determination of that question, be determined in accordance with the usage and practice of the House of House of Parliament of the United Kingdom. Now, Madam Speaker, I did all that to demonstrate that no one must think that when a member in this honorable House moves a motion for the production of papers, that they can not do so. Madam Speaker, you are the arbiter of procedures of this august body. Madam Speaker, I believe that you have the awesome responsibility to consider the greater public interest in this matter and the absolute sacrosanct duty which we owe to the people of these islands to make certain that there's no question as to the propriety of our proceedings. You have that, Madam Speaker. Therefore, that motion is requesting such. Madam Speaker, we as legislators were not put here lightly. People. The key word is people with capital P. People. In the absence of people, there is no country. Madam Speaker, the people bestowed, empowered us with the right, their right to come here and act on their behalf, but more importantly, to govern them. And in so doing, we are required to know what we are doing. We are required to ask, and the executive, nor any other arm of government or this country is immune or can run from us getting that information, Madam Speaker. There is no higher authority in this land. Madam Speaker, we have heard all day, or the majority of the day, that this government, from one thing to the other, but has not reached where we should be, i.e., it was the cabinet at first who approved this, then it's now the caucus, and they don't know who paid for it. Madam Speaker, the people in bestowing that right, their right upon us to govern them. In a democracy, it's the only place people give others the right to tax them and use their money. They did that for us. Now, Madam Speaker, anything we do here must be above reproach. We have been given the right to use the people's money to build roads, to help them socially, to buy aircrafts, to make laws in this instance. And when we step outside of that, we are stepping outside of the sacred grounds that we were given to walk on. And we are skating on thin ice, and the only thing below ice is cold water. And you're going to be chilled. And this country will be chilled. Madam Speaker, I don't know. This morning, I was absolutely, totally shocked that a government could report to its people through the hallowed halls of this honorable house where they were sent to govern those very people that they don't know who paid for the drafting of the legislation to come here. Madam Speaker, I know I'm no lawyer by any stretch of the imagination, but I know that's wrong. I know that. Madam Speaker, it is only fair, it is only reasonable that the people who are the representatives, the members of this honorable house, who are representatives of the people of the country, be given the necessary documentation to show who paid for it. If the people didn't, then we need to know who the philanthropist is. And why? Is there a reason why someone would be so generous without receiving any benefit to step up and pay on behalf of the people? Something that is going to govern the people. Now, I understand, Madam Speaker, philanthropists donate anything out of altruistic reasons. But, Madam Speaker, when this hallowed halls become the subject of such conflicts, particularly when the very people who are paying for it benefits as a result, I don't want to be a part of that. Today, tomorrow, the next day, the people needs to relieve me of my job. I will not participate in that behavior. That is beyond why I was put here. I am no puppet on the string. I cannot be bought unless it is they're paying me my contract. That is not going to happen. And I will, with the last breath in me, object to that. Madam Speaker, I cannot say who will be paid. That's not for me to determine, nor should I, because it would be imputing improper motives. And I ain't talking about monetarily either, Madam Speaker. Payment can be in many forms. But I know some payment has to go on. They are getting the benefit of it. Madam Speaker, we don't even know if those two organizations, LCC, CILS, and Bar Association, has consensus amongst its members. The minister spoke of the executive. And again, we hear this coming through like the Attorney General talks about. We got to trust them. Trust? Really trust? Madam Speaker, how can we be expected to trust when this is not the proper process as it is? How can the very representatives who the people elected be asked to trust when this process is so convoluted? Madam Speaker, this behavior needs to stop pronto. It needs to stop. We love, and this government most of all, love to talk about that magical word, transparency. Were it not for this question, Madam Speaker, there would have been no transparency in this. Because I, for one, believe that the question was genuinely being asked of the Attorney General by myself to find out exactly how much this cost us to get it done. Here we are. That it didn't cost us anything, but we don't know who paid for it on behalf of my people. And we are given the right to take their money to govern them, to make laws to govern them. At the very least, Madam Speaker, that's the last thing we must make convoluted. At the very least, Madam Speaker, on behalf of the people of this country, we must not cross that divide. But, Madam Speaker, I got something for the people that I want the people to take note of today if they're listening to me. And I just say it very slowly for my people, because sometimes they don't understand me. I speak kind of fast. Oh, what tangled web we weave when we seek to deceive. Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, point of order.
Recognize Honorable Premier. Please state your point of order.
Madam Speaker, that goes way beyond imputing motive. That is an accusation of deception by the member about the government. It is a point of order, Madam Speaker, and the member ought to be asked to withdraw it, in my respectful opinion.
Honorable member from Easton, were you directing those words to the members within this chamber, or were you using poetry to be dramatic?
Madam Speaker, I was merely using portrait. I don't know, I said earlier, I don't know who's being paid, but there's some form of payment. Not necessarily monetary, but
please,
and this is an extension of that.
Please leave the drama into the amateur level and do not direct it to members of this House, otherwise the chair will have to intervene. Please continue.
Madam Speaker, I know I would never say that. All I'm saying is general. Okay, Madam Speaker? There has been a lot of general debate in here, and I am merely doing the same thing. Now, Madam Speaker, the Premier gets up here and tells this country, first thing he said was he's not a liar. My response to that is, neither am I. Let me say that again. Neither am I. And this thing, he just got up here and told us that it appears, in his opinion, like we're trying to derail this whole process. Because he made certain overtures or invitations to us. Madam Speaker, I got to clear that one up. If he give us chance to get a little further on the agenda. I'm clearing that up for my people. Because no one got telling a lie on me either. I want everybody to know that. Because if I lie on someone, they need to tell me so. But I'm clearing that up in the presence of God and the people who elected me. Because I have no intention of ever lying to them either. My father taught me, when I was young, he said, I'll never forget this, Madam Speaker. He said, you always tell me the truth, son. You'll get beat anyhow, whether you tell a lie or not. But you tell me the truth because you had to deal with the truth when you got it. And you always tell the truth because let others deal with it the same way you had to deal with it. If you tell them a lie, you have to deal with it twice. You have to deal with that person twice. Once when you tell them a lie, and then when they come back and they find out the truth, you have to deal with them again. How are you going to deal with that? So I will set the record straight soon with that in camera meeting that the premier is talking about. I will do that in the presence of my God and my people. Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, the Premier said that they are trying to do what they have to do to get this bill. And it appears like we don't want it. Madam Speaker, no such thing. And that we will dissolve in 2 weeks. And we will still, our intent is that we still don't have any bill, or it appears like our intent is that we still won't have any bill. That's our motive. Madam Speaker, our motive? Really, Madam Speaker? Ours? Madam Speaker, I was just less than half hour ago presented with a load of committee stage amendments, 70 odd, signed. If it's not 70 odd, it's close. I not count them yet, now got time. I not got time, count them, old boy. How much it is?
Members, please keep the comments
count
through
up?
the chair.
How much it is? Tell me numbers. 21? Madam Speaker, I never had a chance. Maybe that is an error on my part, and I will concede that. But Madam Speaker, plenty. Oh, it's plenty. Signed by the minister who is piloting this bill. Madam Speaker, are we really that wrong? Is the members on this side really that wrong in trying to get this bill right when they got all these two? That means, Madam Speaker, it wasn't right from the time you brought it. You brought it, not me.
Member, remember we debate the
Madam-
motion to request a contract. We're not resurrecting the debate. So the sooner you get to the vote is the sooner you can get the contract.
I thank you, Madam Speaker. In the meantime, they should have been going to get it, so they could lay it while I was talking. Madam Speaker, mind you know, there were some doors that were pushed open wide here in that debate a little earlier, and I am only responding thereto.
You have 2 hours. I'm just reminding you the object of your debate.
Yes, Madam Speaker, and then it'll be another 2 hours a little later too. Madam Speaker, I am concerned about us reaching a position where we can have a modern bill too. But Madam Speaker, when the government brings a bill here and we have 135 amendments to it, that cannot be a good bill. But let's say, by virtue of us being opposition, then it might have been a good bill. But we were just opposing for opposition's sake. So why they bring all this? You mean somebody whispered in their ears, or the light bulb went off after it got here? Do not. Madam Speaker, I read a book about Castro. I don't know if it was autobiography or biography, because he did the foreword in it. It was called Gorilla. Madam Speaker, I'll never forget one line in it, one sentence in it. He said, "You may paint me a devil, but be objective about it. Paint me the devil that you wish today because I'm objecting. But what are you doing? 60-odd, let me call it 60-odd, because first that's what it was. You added on since. 20 pages of amendments to a bill that the government went on a campaign in supporting after the two legal associations wrote it. I went on a campaign to oppose it. Thus, you must respect that I have amendments proposed. Why is the government doing this? If it's better than what we had, why? But we know, Madam Speaker, we know that you cannot stand on this floor of this House and criticize the large law firms about discrimination against Caymanians and then give them the ticket to legalize it. You cannot do that. And that's what we have done. Madam Speaker, I'm not saying the bill legalizes discrimination. I'm saying that you, government, I don't know if you did it by yourself. Might have been. You got to get up and say that. And deny it, or deny it, whichever. You cannot speak of the perceived. I heard the Minister for Financial Services saying on the radio, a lot of those things are perceived. I will
recognize Honorable Minister for Financial Service. Please state your point of order.
Sorry, Madam Speaker, the member is misrepresenting what he says he heard me say, because I said in a radio show that there were the situations of real discrimination, and then there was the broader perspective of perceived discrimination. So for him to suggest that I am simply saying that there's a perception of discrimination and that's it, that's not accurate. And I'd ask him to withdraw that and be clear about what he heard me say.
Member from Easton.
Oh, when I've been drawing it, I had to reverse what he was saying, what he said. He said they were real and then they were perceived. I had to reverse, Madam Speaker. I was saying perceived first, and then I was going on to say that some of them were real.
Since you're going on to say that some of them are real, please say that before you continue, that some of them are real.
Yes, Madam Speaker. I will give him the benefit of the doubt, because I listened closer to him, but I thought he had it the other way. I really thought he had it the other way, Madam Speaker. He said that a lot of it, the bigger thing was perceived, but he will agree that there were real discriminations too. That's what he said. Are you satisfied? Not really, but you're the lawyer, I'm not. You can get the right words, I can't. Madam Speaker, he can. Madam Speaker, what I am saying is you cannot in the interest of your people, bring a bill that you cannot even defend, and then foist upon the people. Mind, remember now, Madam Speaker, this bill been gazetted from September. September, I think, September. September, yeah. Give me the green copy so I can read that. Madam Speaker, it is an authorized, gazetted.
The 12th of September.
Madam Speaker, this was done on the 13th day of September 2016. 6 months, okay, my good friend. No, Madam Speaker, a gazettal means this is by and large what the country can expect to be in place. What the government says is in their best interest. It can't be in anybody's best interest.
Member from Easton, you have already used your 2 hours of my member summary right debating it. We are now debating a motion that was raised on the floor by the 5th elected member from Georgetown to request a contract. Please do not resurrect or revive your debate. I've been very generous with both sides of the House with that. I'm going to ask you to continue your debate to the request, the reason why it should or should not be requested. Please continue.
Madam Speaker, this is the document they did in that contract. That's what I'm talking about, ma'am. I do apologize to you.
I know what you're talking about, and I know that you know that I know what you're talking about.
Madam Speaker, you have been here much longer than I, and I do bow to your rule and your whatever. We got to leave that one there, Madam Speaker. But Madam Speaker, what I'm saying is, substantially, this is what should be going back to the people. It is not. With 130, the contract that was signed by whomever. Obviously, the government knows nothing about it, but the substantive answer does say that it was by a former member of the legal department. Employed by the government, which was a formerly employed by the government. And mine, Madam Speaker, did say that the preliminary draft was prepared by a draft person, and then it went on to government people. The facts are that this is what we paid for, this is what we gazetted. And part of payment for this, we have no knowledge of. And we need to know. Madam Speaker, we as legislators need to know before this august body can make, or Madam Speaker, you as the arbiter, can make an informed decision, or you can preside over.
Madam Speaker.
Honorable Premier.
Madam Speaker, on a point of elucidation, it may help the member and help this process.
Member, will you give way to the Premier on his elucidation point? You won't know until it's stated, so please proceed, Premier.
Madam Speaker, we have, as the Minister for Financial Services explained, this information was not within the province of government. We have been seeking to obtain the details of the arrangement. And we do not yet actually have electronically the documentation, but we do have information, or at least the key information with respect to the arrangement. So the government is not at all seeking to avoid telling the House what this is. The minister was careful in what he said, or cautious, because he wasn't sure he could get the information and get it swiftly. But I assure the member and the House that as soon as we have it, the House is entitled to it. So we don't need to have the government berated about trying to hide the information, or that the House. We accept the House is entitled to information, and we're prepared to let them have it.
Honorable member from Easton.
Yes, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I'm glad that the Premier interrupted me there, because that is now music to my ears. I wonder if the Premier would say, and he can get up on elucidation again, Madam Speaker, and break into my time if he so chooses. I'm not running, but he need talk fast. If what time he would think that this would be available, if he has that information available, Madam Speaker, because I don't want to stop tax for a suspension only if it's in short order.
Honorable Premier.
Madam Speaker, in the course of the evening, for it shall be a long evening.
Member from Easton.
Madam Speaker, I'm no lawyer, and while I know he is, and I rate him as a fairly good lawyer, and all those out there, but I know one of the phrases that they use is "in the fullness of time." No, I don't know how full it got be and what time it got
Member
be,
from
but we
Easton.
need it.
Member from Easton, will you give Honorable Premier?
Madam Speaker, I've just been handed a note, a written note about the terms of the agreement. I don't have the actual, it's an email exchange, which we are trying to get printed. But, Madam Speaker, there is, one moment, let me find out who the authors of the emails were before I start, Madam
Okay.
Speaker.
Honorable Premier, please continue.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, what I am reading is from email exchanges between Alistair Robertson, the president of the Cayman Islands Law Society, and Mr. Clive Boromon. There is no formal written contract. Brief terms of service agreed via email. The payment rate was £100 per hour, 100% paid by the Cayman Islands Law Society. The Bar Association said they did not have the available funds. £50,000 approximately was paid. Right. And then the rest goes on to say that the email exchange will be made available shortly.
Is it pounds or dollars?
Pounds. This gentleman, I believe, is resident in the United Kingdom.
Member from Easton.
Madam Speaker, the one thing I've learned about life is that there's one way to cleanse your soul: disclosure. I am thankful for that disclosure, but I look forward to the email thing. Madam Speaker, I submit now and forevermore that what was done here was not necessary. This country, a country of $700 million budget, with some declared $400 million in reserve, must, without reservation, use those monies for such occasion. Madam Speaker, I know the Premier talks about, he spoke that we should back away from the anger, the hostility, the obsession. Madam Speaker? No, you just said that earlier. Don't come now. You don't remember, you were so angry, you don't remember what you said. Yeah, man, I'm waiting for you.
Let's keep the comments to the chair.
You know, my brothers used to tell me, tighten up. My back is broad, my friend. You know that. I have taken it all, and there's more for me to take. I know that. But know that I'm not afraid of it, as long as the others are prepared to take the same thing I'm prepared to take. Madam Speaker, yes, I am angry. I'm angry at this government. I can't say I'm hostile towards them, because they're my friends. I can't say I'm obsessed with them one way or the other, but I'm angry at them for taking this country down that path. I'm angry at all of you, every one of you, for taking my people down a path that compromised them and allowed someone else who has a vested interest in the outcome of a law to pay for it. I'm angry. Of course I'm angry. My anger is not going to spill over into hostility. I wouldn't do that. But you all must know, the government, Madam Speaker, must know that not only am I angry, but the country should be incensed at the kind of behavior, at the direction this government has taken them in this regard. It is wrong. It is wrong. I wonder, Madam Speaker, is it any wonder they had all these full-page ads in the paper? They had to promote it to achieve their objective because they drafted it. They paid for it. Madam Speaker, if I pay for something, I am going to carry it to the end to advocate for it and defend it. Really? You know, to sit down up here and us, the 17 of us beating each other up while they out there laughing at us. Really? Are we really that fool? Madam Speaker, really? 17 of us are beating each other up while they're out there laughing. The very people who has the interest in seeing that it get put through in the way they want it through. After they paid for it, Madam Speaker, am I logical or not? I don't know. And I must promote that? Is the government satisfied in me getting up here and expressing my anger and saying these things while the very people whose interest has been paid for £100 per hour, £50,000 they paid. What are they, 90,000 CI?
We have reached the hour of interruption. I recognize Honorable Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I move the suspension of Standing Order 10-2 in order that the business of the House may continue until the completion of the second reading, the debate on the second reading of the Legal Practitioners Bill.
The question is that Standing Order 10-2 be suspended to allow the business to continue until the completion of the second reading of the bill now before the House. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Against, no.
No.
I believe the ayes have it. Accordingly, Standing Order 10-2 is hereby suspended. Member from Eastern, please continue.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. When we did the interruption, then I was talking about the very people who paid for this are outside whilst we are beating each other. And if there wasn't a disclosure, we would never know why we were beating each other. Madam Speaker, I don't feel good about that. I really don't. Because the one thing I know about the members on this side and those there and your good self, Madam Speaker, is that we come from the same 3 miles wide by 24 miles long.
Mine is 1.5 by 12.
And then I will go on and say that too, Madam Speaker. And the little Cayman too, because the member, the deputy premier. Madam Speaker, that is, it's a small price. We have been bought. We have been thrown into the lion's den for 50,000.
Madam Speaker. point of-
Recognize
point of
Honorable
order.
Premier. Please state your point of order.
The member from East End says we have been bought. Obviously, if he's referring to himself or his colleagues, that's a matter for him, but that doesn't apply to this side.
Member from Eastern, please complete your sentence so that the chair can make a decision on who has been bought.
The country, Madam Speaker,
The country has been bought?
it appears like the country has been bought
By who?
by whomever paid for it, which is Cayman Islands Law Society. They are the ones who paid for it, Madam Speaker, whilst we stand in here and beat each other on what the provision should be in the law. They paid for it, Madam Speaker. The Premier got up here and said that. Then,
Member from Eastern, how can you, in a process of deductive reason, how can you go from A paying for B and then A making a quantum leap to owning or buying C? Surely you put a higher price on the country, a commodity called Cayman Islands, than just for the payment of one piece of legislation. That's what I'm asking you, to be specific in what you come in your conclusions to. I know, I believe the chair knows what you're trying to get at, but I don't think that the
Madam
chair can
Speaker,
allow you to make the statement that the country has been bought unless you can come with some more direct or circumstantial evidence.
Madam Speaker, I'm not, in whatever part of that you want me to withdraw, I don't have a problem with that. What I'm trying to get at, Madam Speaker, that the Cayman Islands Law Society has paid for a piece of legislation that they are asking us, the 18 members here, to a lesser extent yourself because you're in the chair, Madam Speaker, to approve for them, which must govern our country. That cannot be the way it should be. And I'm trying to avoid the payment and sale and buy and sell direction, Madam Speaker. So I'm trying to coach it properly because I don't want to go back there, because I don't want the Premier to think that, I know for him, I know him well, he not got nothing, so he can't get bought like me. But I didn't deliberately mean it to us as individuals. I'm talking about, we represent this country. some sector, faction within this society of Caymanians, each and everyone severally and collectively represent. And they can spend £50,000 when we deal with 700 million as our little budget. And £50,000? No, not much compared with that cheap price. Yeah. That's why I'm afraid of it. You're right with that, my good friend, Minister of Finance. You're right with that. That's a cheap price
Madam
compared
Speaker.
with our budget.
Recognize Honorable Minister for Finance.
Madam Speaker, I'm aware that what is being said on this microphone is transmitted across the airwaves, and I would like the member from East End to stand and retract the statement he just made, that that is a cheap price for you. Those were the exact words. If he meant something else, then explain that.
Honorable Member from Northside, could you please, from Eastern, I beg your pardon,
Madam
can you please
Speaker,
explain what you meant?
There
that
is
you were
no
not
way I would
directing it to
ever
the
say that.
Honorable.
I would ever say that about the Minister of Financial Services. What?
Madam Speaker,
Honorable Minister for
if he
Financial
spoke-
Services.
if he spoke the words without meaning them, I accept that. But if you go back and check the Hansards, his exact words were, that is a cheap price for you. He may not have meant the words he used, but if he did not mean that, then he needs to explain it and retract the words he used.
Member from
Madam Speaker,
Eastern.
what I went on to say was it was a cheap for his budget, compared with his budget, yeah, which was 700 million. There was no way I meant that it was cheap for him to be bought by that. There was no way. I wouldn't say it about anyone else. Why would I say it about him? And if he get incensed by that, all I can say to him is that, and if I can repeat and make it clear, compared with the budget that he brings here, $50,000 is a cheap price. £1,000 is a cheap price, which is 78,000 CI dollars.
Member, you did say for you, whether or not that was your intentions, I would ask you to retract the personal pronoun and continue in the vein that you've just explained what you intended to say. Because it was actually uttered, I'd wish you to retract for you, because you were talking to the Minister of Finance at that time.
Madam Speaker, I shall
Thank
do
you.
as you wish, but I want it to be made clear that that was not my intent. Absolutely not.
Please continue.
Madam Speaker, I don't want to be tempted by that premier, you see. Madam Speaker, my last thing on this, Madam Speaker, is that despite the many point of orders, which was not my intention, I didn't intend to personally attack any member over there because no one has personally attacked me. Maybe there was some misunderstanding of what my full intentions were. And for that, I apologize. But what I do know is that I know a couple of the members over there personally, and I can speak on their behalf. I can't speak for others because I don't know them in that capacity, that personal capacity. Because whilst I have a personal relationship with them, I still don't believe that they would go to that extent. But there are some that I'll put my head on a chopping block for over there. Yeah, I would. until they tell me otherwise. And I can pick them out whenever I have a need to. So, Madam Speaker, but nevertheless, I would never do that to any of them. I wouldn't. Just that I got distinguished some as personal knowledge that I have. And I'm not talking about taking bribes or anything, I'm just talking about period. Madam Speaker, this law has taken this country through some very contentious times recently. Maybe it is time that we do find some way to find a roadmap to end this. Maybe there is no way to do it, to resolve it. I tried myself. Despite the newspapers talking about olive branches, I don't know anything about an olive branch. And I'm going to correct that in the eyes of the people and God. But, Madam Speaker, there is enough tension as it is, and I know sour, I think I'll leave it at that, things will be said and fly across. It has been flying for quite some time. But maybe, just maybe, Madam Speaker, if all of these disclosures had been coming before, and if certain members of the government were not, like Winston Churchill said about that Secretary of State, who walked around, he said that the only person he knew that walked around with his own china shop was him. Madam Speaker, maybe, just maybe, this would have been resolved a long time with some meaningful compromise that we could maintain our financial industry. We could ensure that Caymanians are treated fairly. That is what we all are looking for, Madam Speaker. Despite what anyone may say, whether it's in here or outside of these hallowed halls, we all have one goal. How we arrive there, therein lies the differences. The principles, nobody disagree with. It's the methods. And the methods were flawed from the word go with this law. And I applaud the Premier, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I'm applauding him again. But Madam Speaker, if we hadn't started with that contract, wherein the Cayman Law Society paid to get it done.
Madam Speaker, point of order. Tedious, really tedious repetition.
Point of order is taken. Member from Easton, please refrain from repetition, even more so tedious repetition.
Madam Speaker, I don't know what's tedious about me saying that now, that if the process hadn't started with that contract, with that contract from the beginning, we wouldn't be here. Because they put in there what they wanted, and that's precisely what has happened. That's precisely what has happened.
Member
and it was
from Eastern,
not.
all the chair is saying is that there's tons and tons of descriptive words in the English language, and I've been here long enough to know that you can be a chef of flowery language whenever you're ready to do so. You're not restricted to repeating, so I'm just asking you to display your talent, as I know you can without repeating.
Madam Speaker, I don't know if that's a compliment. You say I'm a chef of flowery language. I don't know if it's the Flower or Flour, but Madam Speaker, I thank you whichever way it is. But it's the lawyers who have that flowery language, Madam Speaker, not me. I would compliment them with that. Anyway, Madam Speaker, before I tempt the souls of great men, like my good friend the Premier, let me sit down and I submit my case.
And women.
Madam Speaker, I was specifically talking about him, though, because I was tempting him. I wasn't tempting you or the other lady here.
I just wanted you to be gender sensitive.
But I want, yes, Madam Speaker, before I tempt the souls of great men and greater women, especially the Premier.
I recognize, okay, he's given way. I recognize the Honourable Leader of the Opposition for his debate on this motion.
Madam Speaker, I want to rise because certain things were said. But before I get to that, we were here asking questions, and as far as I know, question time hadn't been finished yet. No.
That is correct, Honourable Leader of the
Okay.
Opposition.
Yes.
You're still next in line to the fifth elected member to ask questions.
We were here asking questions about who made the drafting instructions. And out of that convoluted information came some confusion, and thus the motion to get the contract or written agreement, whatever it was they had, so that we would know the content. However, now we hear there is no contract, no such agreement, so no formal written contract. So this debate has been somewhat superfluous, if anything. Madam Speaker, I do want to comment on the Premier's debate that he didn't differentiate. If he had members here could defend themselves, as the member from East End has said, but when I think I need to put on record that I tried that, Madam Speaker, when I saw the bill, when I saw the motion, that Friday morning, I was on Radio Cayman, and I said, listen, this is terrible. It's going to do us more damage, and we need to settle it somehow. I tried, I came back here, and on a matter of procedure, I asked that we discuss it in camera, which was not to hide anything, it was to get people in, and I'll say why. But that could be done too, as the member from East End has said, that can be done because the committees, even the committee of the whole House, have ability to invite people in. But that did not happen. And Madam Speaker, the House took out a whole week adjournment. And then when the government found out how disgruntled must have been their own members were, they went in committee room. And I thought on Friday, well, let me say before that, there were some of them that were invited to meet at the courthouse. As the leader of the opposition, I had no such invitation. I sat here all day Friday, all of us, and I thought the government was in committee room at 12 o'clock, but I found out that most of them were at a meeting at the Grand Old House. At around 3 o'clock, I went to look, well, whether it was most or some of them. I tried to find out from the Premier what was happening. And Madam Speaker, he was in a discussion with the member from East End. And there I found out that, well, we were going to start, hoping to start at that point, but we did say, look, the disgruntlement is there. We have to put it to bed somehow. They said, let's go in camera and meet. My intentions in camera is to sit down first, where we'd be much more informal than in here, and then we'd come here with any amendment we wanted. But, Madam Speaker, none of that happened. My decision was, well, I don't know who drafted the bill at that point. Nobody was taking much ownership of it, except the minister who had said it's the government's. But someone government was saying also that they had not seen that bill. Anyway, Madam Speaker, when I didn't go into the room, because who would we be meeting with? The ministers. If he wasn't going to call anybody. The same one that brought the bill, the same bill that was given its clauses by the private sector, and the same bill that has over 21 pages, something about here, just given to us, 21 pages of amendments, and 136, I think, well, the last one I saw from the member from the North Side, I think that must amount to about 136. Member from East End, 136, somewhere around there. Madam Speaker, the 136, I heard clauses, 136 clauses. And this one is 21 pages. I don't know how many. 78. 78. Madam Speaker, I've been here a long time. And there are times when you have to rush things, and there are times when government is not going to be all right and going to be wrong. I do not think that this one should be rushed as we are doing now. I understand what the Premier has said. Sorry? I know when the bill was published, but look at the things that has come to light since the bill has been published. And 6 months ago, we didn't have these amendments. You all have brought the amendments now. And Madam Speaker, yes, I want to ensure that discrimination goes away. I want to ensure that article clerks are able to get jobs, and some of them to be articled, because some get articled and then they refuse to give them jobs. And I want to ensure that there is protection for overseas business. We want to be assured of all of that. But Madam Speaker, my scare is we cannot get them, and what we want in a good law, in a rush, with a bill that is being changed the way it is being done. The unintended consequences is what I'm afraid of. And that's why I said in my debate, and I think I was the second speaker in the debate, let us do the code of conduct. Let us get the Caymanian Council that we want. Let us get the FAT or CATF clauses that is needed. And hold tight on other things until the bill can be looked at and drawn completely. This is confusion. Madam Speaker, don't forget, look at the damage, and this is debatable, but because they will say no and we will say yes, look at the damage being caused by the conservation law that came here as a bill, which was changed, I think, over, 80 odd times? 30? And how many they filed? A lot too. I can remember them. Anyway, Madam Speaker, there's problems with that bill throughout this country. You can believe it is. And if they think not, and they think that that's going to be the best thing, well, just wait. The unintended consequences is what I want. I heard what the Premier said about the care that he has as a lawyer, has family involved. I care about this country and the people that are being hurt, and the things that people came to my yard, as I said, dressed up like a John Canoe. They were so scared they don't want nobody to see them. Madam Speaker, I care about those things. So I don't want nobody pointing fingers at me saying that I refuse to work with the government. There's far too much to lose not to know what we're doing. So, Madam Speaker, I am not a happy camper with this. I just got these amendments, and so we'll see what the government is saying, and we'll see what all that the other side is, opposition is saying. I am sorry, but I don't think that this is good for this country at this time.
Does any other member wish to speak? Recognize the first elected member from Bordentown.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Old people say, cockroach ain't got no business in rooster fight. But I've sat here, listened back and forth. We ain't get nowhere, Madam Speaker. This is not a way to run these islands. The revelation has been made of the evolution of the bill, how it's gotten here. We all now know basically what has happened. I wasn't here yesterday and was only part of the day on Friday because of my foot. I also now understand the extension from the opposition, and I do remember the leader of the opposition, when he came in here, I talked. We tried to get together in committee and resolve this, as we've done, him for 30-something years, myself and the first elected member from Georgetown for 25 years, on important legislation. I still don't think it's too late, Madam Speaker. The olive leaf is out there again. My understanding that what happened with the olive leaf over the weekend was that whether it was a perception or not, that the government was bringing in external personnel to sit with us and guide on what was going to happen. I don't know what happened about that. Thusly, it was not agreed to meet. Madam Speaker, there are 64 pages of amendments from this side, and I saw the member from North Side added one which makes 67 pages to the tune of almost 140 amendments. The Honorable Minister that brought the bill, 12 pages of amendments. and 7 pages of expected commitments. Do I read that right in seeing that? That's not part, okay. I'm made to understand, Madam Speaker, that's not part of the expected commitments. Oh, it's inclusive, is my understanding. I apologize. I understand the concern, and it's probably have happened in the past where the Law Society did put this bill together, and I, as the human being and all of us, have the concern that if this was put forward, sponsored in whatever manner, that it set off some alarm bells. But I will say, Madam Speaker, it appears, after hearing from our young lawyers, maybe some not so young, in the community, passing to us, sharing with also with government their concerns of some of the amendments in this far-reaching bill that has taken 50 years to get back here. What has happened? We see how some of our people were treated, literally like dogs. I'm prepared not to make sure that continues to happen. It is evident, Madam Speaker, to put it mildly, that the government has, to a certain extent, seen the error of some of the ways that this legislation was put together. And I'm trusting and hoping that we can bring reconciliation to what's happening here and what here. And I beg you guys, I'm begging, forgo all the talking and stuff. We must rise above this, sit down and take that time that the Honorable Premier has done promised us 2 hours, and I don't know who else is going to come. Nonsense. Let us get on with the business of this country. You're 2 weeks away from a new election. Many of us may not be back here. It's about the people of these islands, and until we realize what's happening, it's about the people. It's not about our own egos. We need to come together and deal with this, whatever reason. If it's not everything that we can put through at this time, but at least let us talk about what's happening here. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Does any other member wish to speak? The 4th elected member from Bordentown.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I'm going to be brief because I think we have spent probably enough time on this motion, and I understand we're still in question time, so we're not making much progress right now. Madam Speaker, I just wanted to add to the discussion. Madam Speaker, the other night I stopped at the gas station in Savannah on my way home from this honorable house. And I went inside and I was purchasing a soda and a newspaper. And a gentleman from Newlands was standing in the line in front of me. And he turned around and shook my hand. And then he looked at the lady who was serving him, the cashier, and he said to her, "I'll pay for his stuff." Madam Speaker, I immediately said, "No, thank you. Thank you very much, but no thanks." And there's a reason why I said that to him. He wasn't buying my vote, but I didn't want to, I never accept those favors, Madam Speaker, on principle, because I don't want anyone to ever say that there's some special relationship between me and one constituent and not with another one. I always try to avoid those situations. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes someone will, if you're out, someone will put a drink in front of you and said it came from so-and-so. But this gentleman was a little bit put off, and he said, "Oh, I just wanted to, to buy this for you to show my appreciation." I said, no, you don't have to do that. But Madam Speaker, the same standard that I hold that gentleman to, I hold the members of the Cayman Bar Association and the Cayman Islands Law Society to. And Madam Speaker, I'm looking at this legal practitioner's law position paper I have seen it before, because when I first saw it, I was a part of the government caucus, and it was circulated in caucus, and we had some discussions on it. But Madam Speaker, at no time during that discussion can I recall anyone saying to me that this position paper was going to be accepted as drafting instructions for this bill. Unless memory fails me, I do not recall that ever being the discussion, but that seems to be what has evolved over time. Not only has this position paper evolved through discussions and so forth into drafting instructions, but it's become a bill. And Madam Speaker, at no time when I was a member of the government caucus did anyone say to me or disclose to me that this process we were going through was being paid for on my behalf as a member of the government caucus by anyone other than the Cayman Islands government. So, Madam Speaker, I am very concerned because as a member of the government team, as the Premier's counselor at the time, and a member of caucus, this was going on. I don't know when the offer was made, how it was made, but no one said to me, fourth elected member from Borden Town, this is going to be paid for by some individual not connected to the government, or some individuals. So I am concerned, Madam Speaker, and I'm glad that the email has now been circulated. I haven't had a chance to read it, but I just wanted to voice my displeasure, or that's not it? Okay, it hasn't been circulated. I just wanted to voice my displeasure at the way this process was managed and the displeasure that someone had I'm trying to be careful with my words, Madam Speaker, but someone decided that they would accept that gift on my behalf without my knowledge. Madam Speaker, I agree with my colleague from Borden Town. We can push forward, we can get this accomplished. I've now seen the government propose amendments to this bill. I haven't had a chance to read them, but I'm willing to put in the time and effort to get this bill right. And I do agree with the Premier, there has been a lot of back and forth, there's been a lot of anger. But Madam Speaker, let's not mistake that passion and anger for politicking, because when I first became a member of this honorable legislature, I promised that I would do my best to not engage in that sort of behavior. And I think I've done an all right job so far. I haven't been perfect, Madam Speaker. But Madam Speaker, the passion from this side comes from our desire to get this right. And I can't say it enough times. And in the face of all these amendments and changes and the letters and the arguments that have come in and the representations that have come in, we clearly, up until this point, don't have it right. We cannot just continue without paying respect to that. So yes, Madam Speaker, let's work together. Let's work all night if we have to and get this right. But I just want to get up here and just say my piece, because some of this was done on my behalf without my knowledge. And I think that is extremely unfair. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Does any other member wish to speak? Recognize the honourable member from the District of Northside.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I take my job in this assembly very seriously. Since being elected in 2009, I have never got up on the floor of this assembly and spoke to any bill that I disagreed with, that I didn't offer the government my ideas as to what I thought would make the bill better. The mere fact that on many occasions the government has accepted the amendments that I have proffered must be an indication that they were going to make the bill better. At no time, Madam Speaker, during this debate on the legal practitioners bill, either in the public or in these hallowed chambers, have I said I wanted to block this bill? Madam Speaker, I'm not a lawyer. I believe I have a critical and analytical mind because of my scientific training. And Madam Speaker, it took me hours and hours and hours to go through this legal practitioners bill and to incorporate the amendments that we agreed that we were going to put forward. Every single one of those amendments, I believe, the five of us believe, is going to make the bill better. Now, Madam Speaker, when the government gives me a bill that has been gazetted, that is put on order paper, I have to assume that that's the government's best proffered position and that they believe that bill as presented is in the best interest of the country and the people. It is only in this time, and in particular from the Minister of Financial Services, that every bill that he has presented to this House, he himself has filed countless amendments to those legislations while the bill is on the floor. Madam Speaker, the bill that was gazetted on the 12th of September 2016 was deferred by the government during that meeting. Well, I don't know which opposition it was, but Madam Speaker, we expressed certain concerns about the bill at the time, and if the Premier, I will aggress that yes, they deferred the legislation until this meeting. And they mean to tell me, Madam Speaker, all of that time, October, November, December, January, February, they didn't find it necessary to make any amendments and publish them. Only after the five of us spoke on the bill has these, because we only got amendments, our amendments were tabled weeks ago. But Madam Speaker, the point is that I have to accept, and Madam Speaker, I have filed, as you know, many amendments to other pieces of legislation on this order paper. I just filed 20 amendments to the Public Authorities Bill. And I firmly believe that every one of those is going to make it a better bill when it comes to governance. So, Madam Speaker, I make no apologies for filing amendments and making an effort to try and make the best possible legislation this Parliament can make. And, Madam Speaker, the Minister of Finances says that they're not. You don't know where I get this number of 75 amendments from, but what he just tabled. Madam Speaker, by my count, 46 actual amendments to the bill, 3 amendments to 3 schedules, 29 commitments, which could be part of the bill, which we haven't seen before. That's total 78. At least that's what it goes up to on the north side. I don't know why it is in Newlands or Savannah, right? But that's 78, right? So, Madam Speaker, how about Madam Speaker? I have said many times in this Parliament, I'm not going into no secret meetings about the public business. I want us to deal with this in the committee stage. That's the place, in front of the public. The public has a right to know. I am a great proponent of participatory democracy. I believe that the public has the unquestionable right to be involved and to know how I make decisions on their behalf. That's why I have a meeting in my constituency once a month. Madam Speaker, when it gets to the committee stage, I will fully participate in the debate on the amendments and move the amendments. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Does any other member wish to speak? Recognize the Honourable Minister responsible for financial services.
Madam Speaker, thank you very much. Madam Speaker, I do not wish to prolong this matter. We have had the summary of the terms of the email exchange, and that has been read by the Honourable Premier. The request made by this motion, Madam Speaker, was that the contract in relation to the employment of Mr. Clive Barrowman as a draftsperson, a former employee of the government, be produced. So, Madam Speaker, I have an actual printed copy of the email exchange, which sets out the terms in relation to that. And, Madam Speaker, I am happy to lay this on the table of this Honourable House in the hope that this will resolve this issue and we can move on.
So ordered.
Before doing so, Madam Speaker, I'd like to take the opportunity just to read through it with your permission.
Please proceed.
Madam Speaker, it's an email from Mr. Alistair. Sorry, this one is, I'll start at the beginning. It's in terms of the chain. It's from Alistair Robertson to Clive Barrowman on the 9th of May, 2015. The Legal Practitioners Law. Sorry, Madam Speaker. I hadn't looked down the thread further. Let me start. May 8th, 2015. Clive Barrowman wrote, Alistair, many thanks for your email. I can confirm that I'd be pleased to assist you on a legal practitioner's bill. My terms would be the same as in 2013. I look forward to hearing from you. May 9th, 2015, to Mr. Barrowman from Mr. Robertson. Clive, that is great news. Could I ask you a favor and ask you to resend a copy of those terms? That was followed by an email from Mr. Barrowman to Mr. Robertson. Alistair, many thanks for your email. The terms I have agreed with the various governments I have worked for, brackets, including the UK Foreign and Commonwealth Office, close brackets. And I agreed with Tony Travers, were simply a fee of £100 an hour. Generally, I try to send an account setting out the work that I have done and the hours worked about once a month. Unless you consider we should do otherwise, I suggest that our exchange of emails should suffice. Should anything exceptional turn up, like travel to the islands, we can negotiate further. I hope this is acceptable to you.
Honourable Minister, just so that I'm following correctly, that's the extent of the emails, because unless I missed something, the first email you read was coming from Mr. Barrowman as opposed of it, the genesis being in this jurisdiction. Is there a missing email somewhere?
I assume, Madam Speaker, that there must have been an earlier email which was asking him if he was available. I don't have that as a part of this. This is what I have received. But Madam Speaker, this is a substance of the email which reflects the terms of the agreement by Mr. Barman in terms of drafting the law. So
Okay.
I
I just
say,
wanted to
Madam
make
Speaker,
sure we didn't spend another 4 hours
Yes,
asking
and
for
I
a
agree,
missing
Madam
email.
Speaker. This I think reflects the terms of the agreement.
Okay.
Thank you.
Could members be provided with a copy on the chair as well, Sergeant? Thank you, Minister. Does any other member wish to speak? Does any other member wish to speak? Final call, does any other member wish to speak? If not, I'll recognize Honorable fifth elected member from the District of Georgetown, should he wish to exercise his right of reply.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I do. Madam Speaker, I rise to give my response. Madam Speaker, just so I can follow that email chain, May 8th, 2015, that was the date that the contract was initiated. Is that correct? But in what the Minister of Financial Services read, they also talk about an earlier version done by Clive Barman in 2013. Madam Speaker, as far as I'm aware, having been involved in a number of these drafts.
Honorable fifth elected member from Georgetown, can you say when in 2013?
I need to see the email. Okay, so the Minister of Financial Services mentioned the date in 2013, or that there was a 2013 version. So I'm just trying to get the timeline just for my own personal knowledge. And I'm asking if
Madam Speaker, if I can help, just so we don't delay things.
Honourable Premier, in a point of illustration, you give way member from Georgetown. Please proceed, Honourable Premier.
Madam Speaker, I have a copy of that. It says it's dated 9th of May, 2015, 10:03 a.m. From Alasdair Robertson to Clive Barman, copied to the Cayman Islands Law Society Executive Committee. Read the Legal Practitioner's Law. Alasdair, many thanks for your email. The terms I have agreed with the various governments I have worked for, including the UK Foreign and Commonwealth Office, and I agreed with Tony Travers, were simply a fee of £100 an hour. Generally, I try to send an account setting of the work I have done and the hours worked about once a month. Unless you consider we should do otherwise, I suggest that our exchange of emails should suffice. Should anything exceptional turn up, like travel to the island, we can negotiate further. I hope this is acceptable to you. That was the final email from Mr. Borman, which set out the terms of the agreement. His earlier email said, when being asked if he could undertake the drafting of the bill, he said, I can confirm that, Alasdair, many thanks for your email. I can confirm that I would be pleased to assist you on the legal practitioner's bill. My terms would be the same as in 2013. I look forward to hearing from you. Kind regards, Clive. That's all it says.
Fifth elected member from Georgetown.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And again, I just want to ask the question whether or not we're dealing with two versions of the same. So you know nothing about the one before, because, all right, I was just saying, Madam Speaker, I've been very involved with this as I was a CBA executive member before I got into government. And I was aware of a version that had come to the interim government, which was version A and B, I think. So now we're talking about a third version at the same time, or, is what I'm getting from this email exchange. And now, then we have a 2015 version on top of the 2013 version that Barrowman did, plus the one by Sherry Bodden, Teresa Pitcairn, and Sama Jackson. Just want to understand before I go into my, I'm sorry, and Ian Paget Brown. All before this. There were, but I'm just talking about that same time period, because the one that we were circulating here, sorry, in the Cayman Islands, that both Cayman Islands Law Society, all the lawyers, Caymanian Bar Association were discussing at that time, that the Attorney General hosted a meeting about, was version A and B. And I'm just trying to figure out where the first 2013 version came from. Because 2013 was right around the same time that we took office. That's why I'm trying to understand. All right? I want to know what I'm talking about before I go further. Madam Speaker, I guess I might need, I'll fast forward for a little bit and I'll come back to that once I get the email so I can ascertain what I'm doing, because I have an email here dated February 2013 that suggests the Clive Barrowman note, and I was just again wondering when that started, and I'm happy to table this as well. But anyway, Madam Speaker.
If you would, so that the House would know that, again, the genesis of these emails, it's almost like Murder, She Wrote.
I know, Madam Speaker, it's a mystery within a mystery, and I'm just trying to get to the bottom of it. I have it here. I can give it to the Sergeant. Madam Speaker, notwithstanding the confusion about the bill that will soon be cleared up, the Premier in his address spoke about us, I guess the opposition, the 5 members, so let's get that straight, not the official opposition, but the 5 members of the unofficial or independent opposition taking to the road and speaking out against this bill. And those are my notes, Madam Speaker, but what I was going to say, absolutely, right? Because the bill that we read at the time, the bill that we had in our possession until the amendments were filed on 14th of March 2017 at 5:45 p.m., which was yesterday, and tabled when I started this motion, Madam Speaker, circulated when we started this motion, is what we were going on. And I have said it long and often, Madam Speaker, that bill that I saw the 21 days before October, which was a statutory minimum, did not address significant issues that I personally had raised in the past, that lawyers had raised to me in the past, and that I had been advocating for. So there was no question that, yes, as raised by the government, we went on a roadshow. Madam Speaker, as far back as July 2015, I spoke to the government in caucus. I was a member of their caucus at the time, about the Caymanians that had come to me, and I read that letter on Thursday in this honorable house, or that email. And they were concerned then about the proper regulation of the industry, that hiring, training, and promotion to equity partnership that they weren't being included in. And so these are things, Madam Speaker, that any reasonable person and any reasonable government would have expected amendments from this side.
Member, I just want to remind you that you're actually winding up on your motion to request the contract.
Yes, Madam Speaker, I was just trying to answer some of the allegations made, but I will gloss through these things. Madam Speaker, the other thing about this is the Premier has said now he wants to sit down. And Mr. Premier, with all due respect, we've been saying it for over a year, right? I personally went to CILS. I went and asked the Minister of Financial Services. I asked CBA. Drafts, drafts, drafts. And every time I was asking for a draft to share with the opposition, I was told it was somebody else's draft and that they didn't have permission to share it with me. Right? I suggested at the time that as members of the opposition, based on something that was 15 years in the making, something of national importance, that we sit down, go through the motion, or go through the bill, and get all of the wrinkles and warts and all the representations made to us out there in the bill. It never happened. Madam Speaker, in this late stage, it's very convenient to get up now and say, oh, we want meetings. Madam Speaker, the bottom line is, in my opinion, there is an inherent conflict here that needs to be acknowledged and answered. I don't often agree with the leader of opposition in his representations. Some of the time. Anytime you bring something for the benefit of these people of these islands in the country, I'm happy to support you. More so than not, yes, all right, I will agree to that. But he's absolutely right, Madam Speaker, in this instance. And I, for one, will go on record in this honorable house and say that I'm happy to proceed on the proposals he made this evening in his representations. His proposal is sound, and I hope that cooler heads can prevail. Because I could get up here and beat my chest and talk about what people have said about me on the radio, that I was not capable in two firms that I was a part of. But I'm not going to do that, Madam Speaker, because the time is past, right? There shouldn't be any bad blood in here when people are talking passionately. Yep. But like I said, I'm not going to go into that, right? I've got the recording now. I didn't have it before because I don't listen to the radio. But anyway, I would suggest, Madam Speaker, that if we want something that works, we act with haste on the leader of opposition's proposal, but not only on his, Madam Speaker, as Father of the House. The Honorable Deputy Speaker, who I admire and respect greatly, who has helped me a lot in this Honorable House, both on that side of the aisle and on this side of the aisle, someone who doesn't have the vested interest in it that lawyers might, but nobody can question his resolve to stand up for the people of these islands. He has done so without any blemish on his character. And the fact that he's getting up and saying it's time, then I think we can all look, and I will bend and bow to their knowledge and experience, Madam Speaker. If the government is willing to engage in good faith and listen to the opposition's amendments, not categorically dismiss them, because we too spend time on this. We don't have researchers and we don't have other things. We have to go and engage and ask the questions and do the work ourselves. If there is that commitment to take on the suggestions of two of this House's elders, and I use that in time that they've been in this honorable House and not any reference to age, then I say, let's do it. Let's get to the salient points, the points that everyone says we need. Let's get this bill passed, work in committee stage. I think we should call in the witnesses, though, to ascertain just how deep this is, because some people are still not willing to write their names on these letters. And that means that there are a number of people that are afraid to be seen in public. Sorry. We would call the witnesses I propose in camera, so their identities can remain right here in this room, in these hallowed halls. Because if they get out, then we know it's one of us in here that said it.
And you'll never know who it was. That's why I'm not going in there.
Madam Speaker, I already hear some good suggestions from the other side, and I think that's, again, a good start, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, it was said earlier, and I corrected it, that I'm against this bill. I am not. I want the best for my people. I have lived this, Madam Speaker, as a lawyer, as a council member in the Cayman Bar Association and secretary, as a member of the Business Staffing Plan Board, as a member of this government, Madam Speaker. I've seen it from all sides. It has not waned. What has changed is that people now are willing to put their names there and say, I don't care what the consequences are. Madam Speaker, when Caymanians do that, when mild-mannered, meek Caymanians do that, that should signal to all of us in here that they've had enough. And we, as their representatives, by them and for them, owe them at least an audience, Madam Speaker, to hear these things, to have the strong conversations that we need to have with some of the law firms. We're not here to close down law firms, at least I'm not. But they also need to acknowledge and accept that they have done wrong by our people. Madam Speaker, I take my job very seriously. I spend a lot of time researching and going over these. And I think I'm actually a very balanced person in general. But I've also said in this hallowed house. Enough is enough. The time is now. And somebody said yesterday I was saying all this stuff. Absolutely, I'll own it. And I make no apologies to anybody for it or asking about the process, Madam Speaker, because that's where we need to get to. Truth and reconciliation, transparency and accountability. That's what we need to demand in this House. Madam Speaker, I had a quick glance at the notice of committee stage amendments presented through this. No, but we were talking about this, Premier, so I'm just referencing this, and I'm trying to do it in a vein of good faith. And what I was going to say is that some of the things, it appears at a tertiary glance that the representations that we made last week on behalf of our people are starting to filter in. I don't expect that they're going to be conclusive of everything that we've said, but that's fine for a starting point, Madam Speaker. So I accede to the government that at least this shows that they were listening finally to the opposition and to the people. Madam Speaker, I think based on what we've seen here today, we can all accept that there were flaws in how this was handled, and that it was not a textbook case of good governance, transparency, etc. But that doesn't mean that we can't move forward. Madam Speaker, part and parcel of this is that anything that took so long, so many governments to go through, this government could not have expected to just ram it down our throats because they had the majority. There's one thing to have power. There's another thing to exercise restraint. And restraint would have been dealing with this side very early. The accountants came to us. We gave them a piece of our minds. They went back and they came back. They went back and they came back. They passed the law. We passed the law. Right? Madam Speaker, it's the same things I was telling the societies from over a year ago. Madam Speaker, I want to grow this industry. I also want our Caymanians to get to the top so they can fully participate in that growth. So anytime anybody wants to ask what my motives are, it is full participation of my people, getting them equal opportunities, getting them full exposure, equal pay in terms of the PQE, and also then eventually to equity partnership. That simple. But I also know that we cannot just simply reward bad behavior by rubber stamping a law because we're on a deadline. So again, I would implore this honorable House to listen to those two fine gentlemen that have made these representations. And I, for one, and I can't speak for anybody else because, again, lest people think otherwise, I am an independent member of this opposition. I have no leader, I have no party. I use this, and I always ask myself two questions. Is it good for Caymanians? Is it good for the Cayman Islands? In that order. That's how I make my decisions in this House, Madam Speaker. Not because of anything anybody else will say. So I, for one, based on the items that we've seen, the discussion, and the suggestions, will roll up my sleeves and act in the best interests of Caymanian lawyers, the Caymanian legal profession, and the Cayman Islands. And I will be happy to do so with these two gentlemen leading the way, along with the Premier and the government. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honourable fifth elected member, before I put the question on your motion, the contract, quote unquote, has been supplied by the Honourable Minister for Financial Services, which was the substantive request of your motion. Are you still in a position where you want to go to the formality of putting the question for the record, or do you wish to withdraw, seeing that you now have what the motion was seeking?
Yeah. No, Madam Speaker, I want to put it to the vote. Thank you.
Okay. The question is that the contract dealing with the terms of reference of the legal practitioner's bill be submitted to this honourable House in its entirety. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, no. I believe the ayes have it. The motion is accordingly passed for...
Divide, please.
Madam Clerk, please call for division.
Honourable Alden McLaughlin, Honourable Moses Kirkconnell,
Aye.
Honourable Kurt Tibbetts, Honourable Osborne Bodden,
Aye.
Honourable Wayne Panton, Honourable Marco Archer,
Aye.
Honourable Tara Rivers,
Aye.
Mr. Roy McTaggart,
Aye.
Mr. Joseph Hugh,
Aye.
Honourable McKeeva Bush, Mr. Borny Bush, Captain Eugene Ebanks,
Aye.
Mr. Alva Saku,
Aye.
Mr. Winston Connolly,
Aye.
Mr. Ezra Miller,
Aye.
Mr. Arden McLean,
Aye.
Honourable Anthony Eden,
The results of the division are as follows: 16 ayes, 1 absentee. The motion is carried. We revert to question time. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition was next in line to pose his question.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we have heard that drafting instructions came from the position papers which we have, which we were not able to go through, of course, but we have them now, and of the two associations. Then the government took them to the caucus. Can the minister say who is the caucus? We heard, Madam Speaker, that the caucus told them, I think, if I am, and we might. Madam Speaker, that the caucus then give them support or instructions to have the bill drafted by entities other than government. If he didn't say that, certainly that was the effect.
Honourable Minister responsible for financial services, I think he's asking who's your caucus.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the caucus essentially consists of the government front bench and back bench. It also includes the chairman of the Progressives Party. No, he didn't. And caucus simply considers proposals and makes recommendations as to the government's position, what the government's position should be. That's it.
Recognize the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Madam Speaker, we know who government front bench is and who their two backbench members are. Who is the chairman of Progress, the PPM? Who is the chairman of the PPM?
Honorable Minister for Financial Services.
Madam Speaker, I don't think it's any secret. We could almost take judicial notice. The chairman is Mr. Anton Duckworth.
If there are no further supplementaries, we'll move the question number 35.
The fourth elected member for Bordentown to ask the Honourable Minister of Financial Services, Commerce and Environment, question number 35.
Recognize the Honourable fourth elected member from Bordentown.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I wish to ask question number 35 in my name to the Honourable Minister of Financial Services, Commerce and Environment. Can the Honourable Minister provide an update on the progress made with implementing electronic funds clearings between all local retail banks?
Honourable Minister for Financial Services.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the answer, the Cayman Islands Monetary Authority can report that extensive progress has been made on implementing electronic funds clearings between all local retail banks. The Cayman Islands Bankers Association is spearheading the project and has formalized a plan to establish an automated payment and clearing system in the Cayman Islands that would provide two critical functions: electronic funds transfers and check image exchange to speed up the payments and clearing processes. The CIBA anticipates that the electronic funds transfer system will be implemented by the third quarter of 2017. Thank you.
Are there no supplementaries? Fourth elected member from Bordentown.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just can the Minister state what the anticipated clearing time will be for transactions initiated under the new system? For example, when a transaction is initiated, how long would it take for the funds to settle?
Honourable Minister for Financial Services.
Madam Speaker, I can't say that I have exact information in respect to that, but if it is an electronic funds transfer system, it will be relatively immediate. In terms of the check clearing system, I think that is going to be somewhat similar, but it may take more time than something happening within seconds. I don't know the exact information in respect to that, but it will be relatively rapid compared to the process that exists today, Madam Speaker.
If there are no further supplementaries, we'll move on to question 36.
The elected member for Northside to ask the Honourable Minister of Financial Services, Commerce and Environment, question number 36.
Recognize the Honourable member from Northside.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to ask Honourable Minister of Financial Services, Commerce and Environment the following question. Can the Honourable Minister give an update on the investigation into distribution of funds by HSBC Foundation, and in particular to the Edna Mile Primary School, as committed to during the committee stage on the Non-Profit Organization Bill 2016 on the 21st of October 2016?
Honourable Minister for Financial Services.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the answer during the discussion on the Non-Profit Organization Bill 2016, the answers will show that I made no commitment to investigate the distribution of funds by the HSBC Foundation. Nevertheless, I have been informed that the Ministry of Education, on the request of the Honourable Attorney General, wrote to all public schools and public school PTAs to provide information on any donations that may have been received. As at February 14th, 2017, 2 public educational institutions had received significant donations. This did not include the Edna Mile Primary School. The donations were made on the understanding that no publicity would be arranged, so it would not be appropriate for further details to be announced. Thank you.
If there are no further supplementaries, we'll move on to the next question, being question 37.
The elected member for Northside to ask Honourable Minister of Education, Employment and Gender Affairs, question number 37.
Honourable member from Northside.
The order paper said that the question is directed to the Honorable Minister of Financial Services, Commerce and Environment. I believe that's a, so I think it needs to be the
It
Minister of
should be
Education.
education. But the clerk said that she said education. The order paper says financial services. At the end of the day, it should go to the Minister of Education. So let's move on.
Okay. The question is, can the Honorable Minister give the final cost of the bus shelter at the Edna Moyle Primary School, including the cost of the drain well?
Recognize the Minister responsible for education.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the answer. The total cost of the bus shelter project at the Edna Moyle Primary School was $63,580, which includes the final cost of the storm drain at $3,100, as provided to me by my staff.
Are there any supplementaries? If not, member from Northside.
Madam Speaker, could the Minister confirm that the drain well has been dug to the depth as specified on the plan on which the bids were made?
Honourable Minister for Education.
Madam Speaker, I'd like a moment to confer with my staff.
Most certainly.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, I've been advised that the depth of the well that was originally agreed was not, in fact, achieved, I guess, by the contractor who dug.
Are there any more supplementaries? If not, we'll move on to the member from Northside.
Just one more. Can the Minister say whether an adjustment was made to the bid cost that was submitted to dig the well 120 feet when the well is only 6 or 7 feet?
Honourable Minister for Education.
Sure, can I just have another moment to confer with my staff, please?
Yes, Minister.
Madam Speaker, I've been advised by my technical staff that the drain well was agreed to be dug to 100 feet and that it was actually installed at 70 feet according to their measurements, and that there was in fact a refund or an adjustment, and the only outstanding monies were $65 that the contractor kept for various overheads. So,
Member from Northside, I'll allow 2 more supplementaries and we'll move on to the
Madam
next
Chairman,
item.
sorry, Madam Speaker.
Speaker.
Madam Speaker, I had reason to doubt that the well was 120 feet because of the time the rig spent there and how far the week had gotten when I went to have lunch with my mother. I said, on Sunday, when I come back 5 o'clock, the rig is gone. I measured the depth of the well with my little fishing line that I catch shellfish with down by my mother's house. My grandfather told me that's 6 feet. I got 11 of them, 6 or 6 feet. The next morning, Mr. Tom Ebanks was on the site. I asked him to measure, to have the contractor measure the well. The contractor cussed me out, told me that if I had not better do than come down here and talk about measuring well. I said, Tommy, you need to measure the well. So he asked him to measure the well. Madam Speaker, he tied one of them 32-ounce straight claw hammers onto his own 100-foot tape. And he said, you see, 1 foot is used to tie it. And slack it down and stop at 6 to 7 feet. Look at me, tell me the hydrostatic pressure is so good at floating the hammer. So I said, well, see that 4-foot crowbar there? Can't float that. He dutifully tied it on to stop at 6 to 7 feet again. So, Madam Speaker, the plans on which the bid was made, of which I have a copy, says the well was supposed to be 120 feet. 120 feet. I'll bring the plans tomorrow and table it. So the question I asked, was the contractor paid the full price that he bid for a 120-foot well for a 6 to 7 foot well?
Honorable Minister for Education.
He said $75 and he made him keep it.
Madam Speaker, as I indicated, or maybe I didn't indicate this part, I've just been informed that the adjustment was made for $400 refund back to the government. The only thing that would be an outstanding amount that wasn't necessarily adjusted back to the government was $65, and that was by agreement with the ministry at that time. So the only thing that wasn't refunded to the government was $65.
We'll move on to the next item of business.
Statements by honorable members and ministers of the cabinet.
None.
Personal explanations.
Recognize the member from Easton.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I wish to set the record straight on the matter of an in-camera meeting scheduled for last Monday, especially since the press has tried to portray the independent members as the cause for the meeting not happening. On Friday last, the Premier expressed to the 4th elected member from Bodden Town, Mr. Saku, and myself, his frustrations at not making progress with his government on the opposition independent proposed amendments and the additional suggestions made by us during our contribution to the debate on the Legal Practitioners Bill. I suggested, in the interest of efficiency and to save time, that we meet on Sunday in order for us to explain our proposed amendments and maybe reach consensus on some prior to committee on the Legal Practitioners Bill. It should be noted that I was committing my colleagues to attend this meeting without their prior approved consent. I further suggested that we, the independent, be allowed to bring to assist with airing or proposed amendments, bring support to assist with airing or proposed amendments. The Premier refused the suggestion on grounds that at least 2 of our support would be considered to be too disruptive. The Premier consulted with his colleagues and eventually agreed on Monday at 3 p.m. upon the completion of the Youth Parliament. Sometime during Friday evening, I was contacted by my colleagues, informed me that the press was reporting that the Premier was extending an olive branch for us to meet. Imagine our surprise. My colleagues expressed their objection to attending because the government was not acting in good faith. On Monday morning, Madam Speaker, I was contacted by the Chief Justice, who explained that Minister Patton had contacted him to attend and address the meeting scheduled for 3 p.m. that day. In his defense, that is the Chief Justice, he said that he had told Minister Patton that he would have to clear it with other members of the legislature, thus his call to myself. My concern about that call was not that it was the Chief Justice, but that we were not allowed to bring support to the meeting, yet the government was now bringing support, for whatever reason, to do what should have been a meeting to work out what would have normally been discussed in committee stage of any bill before the legislature. Madam Speaker, it is patently obvious that the government was using the opportunity presented by myself to gain one-upmanship and not interested in reaching consensus on the differences between us on the legal practitioners bill. This behavior, I submit, is precisely why there exists such emotive contention with what is agreed by all as one of the most important pieces of legislation to ever come before this august body. I can say that we further believe that this bill has not progressed over the many years, as there are certain members of the government who refuse to engage with us. Madam Speaker, the people must know that it is not our intention, that is us over here, to harm the financial industry and by extension, our country. To the contrary, we too want a modern legal practitioners bill or law and will support the financial industry whilst giving our people opportunities and benefiting the country as a whole. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
We'll now take the afternoon break and reconvene at 6:45.